you rode the rollers out the back of a saloon in Texas?
Oh yeah, it definitely happened. And you got this guy like coming out and with his truck and his cowboy boots and his hat, and he's looking at me like I'm psychotic.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Pioro, and with me is Jake Williams. Hey, Jake.
Hey, Matt. Good to be here. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Listeners, unfortunately, Matt Hansen is not joining us for this episode. That guy's busy, man. That guy's busy. Schedules did not match up, but he will return. In this episode, the feature interview is with Mara Roldan. She is an up-and-coming rider with a fascinating backstory. Growing up, she was quite nomadic. This year, she's on the women's World Tour team Picnic Post NL, but before this season, she'd never ridden a World Tour race. That interview is coming up. But first, Jake. Road cycling is in the midst of its first Grand Tour of the season. It's the Giro d'Italia, as you know. It has a great lineup with Primoz Roglic, Juan Ayuso, Jai Hindley, Richard Carapaz, Nairo Quintana, Egan Bernal, the Yates brothers, Simon and Adam. That bunch that I just rhymed off. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 who've won the Giro d'Italia in the past. Of course, Canadian fans are thrilled to see Derek G, the star of the 2023 Giro. He's back in Italy for this edition. G and his team Israel Premier Tech this time are focusing on the general classification. That's in contrast to his stage hunting in 2023. And it follows a trend we saw at last year's Criterium de Dauphiné, where he finished third overall. This year he won Au Gran Camino, was fourth at Tirreno Adriatico, and third at the Tour of the Alps just at the end of April. All that is great. And then came the first stage of the Giro. There was a split, and G finished in a group 57 seconds behind many of the favorites. By the first rest day, he was in 34th overall, and that was a minute and 34 off the race leader, Mads Pedersen. On stage 4, the first stage in Italy, after the first 3 in Albania, Nicholas Zukowski, that's the Canadian on Team Q36.5, who's there to support Tom Pidcock. Zukowski was in a crash and had to abandon. That's a total bummer. That's his first Grand Tour. But Jake, returning to Derek G, what did you think about his start at the 2025 Giro?
For sure. I think not the ideal start to the Giro, especially this year, where expectations are clear and they are targeting the GC. Of course, that split early on, not ideal. His time trial, however, he did bounce back. He noted that it wasn't his best, but it wasn't bad. So I think, thankfully, this race being a 3-week long race, we've got plenty of time to get back on the even keel. And, I'm sure expectations are still fairly high for him. I know they are back home here, and I'm sure within the team, they're confident that the team will rally around him. So yeah, not the best start, not the worst. Kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was looking at the Tour de France last year, where he rode to a fantastic 9th overall. But at the end of stage 3 of the 2024 Tour de France, he was 27th and a minute 22 back of the leader. At the end of stage 3 at this Giro, he was 34th, a minute 34 back. It doesn't seem that different. I know, I don't want to read too much into it. Completely different races and all. But I think to your point about it being a 3-week race, a lot can change, a lot can develop at this point. It's too early to tell, and it's too early to call that his race has gone one way or the other at this point. Yeah, I'm sure the team would have liked it much better if he was in that first group on the first stage. It would have taken a bit more pressure off. Now they have to be a little more diligent, especially in this first full week of racing. For Lidl Trek, at the beginning of this race, they were bossing it. My favorite comment was from the sassy Mads Pedersen after he won the first stage. An interviewer asked him just after the stage, what was the plan going into today, which he won. And his response was something just like you saw on the TV. And basically, I think I heard one of his teammates say the same thing. So their plan worked perfectly. And then they did a fantastic job on the third stage. That's his second win, or at the time, that was his second win of the Giro, put him back in the pink leader's jersey. So if you ask me, the Giro is the classic season that Pedersen wanted, or just meditate on that. Maybe Mads Pedersen got the 2025 classic season he wanted in Albania.
That's true. And Derek G may never go back to Albania again. And why would he want to? You know, I think this was definitely, just Mads Pedersen just rolling along. I think he's had, a pretty great season overall. And let's keep the winning ways going over at Lidl Trek there. It's Ciccone doing work for him. Everyone's just, they seem to be, the vibes are high there, we'll say. The vibes are very high.
Definitely. Yeah, G may not be going back to Albania anytime soon, but I think he will make a visit to Tirana.
Wow.
See what I did there?
Good. That's good. Where is that exactly? In the what region? Do you know which province there?
Ontario. So I've been dining out on this gag that gives me no end of delight. That I was first listening to cycling pundits talking about the capital of Albania. Now I have to be careful because I'm confusing myself. Tirana, Tirana. But when I was casually listening to this talk of the capital of Albania, I kept hearing a passable pronunciation of Ontario's capital city, Tirana. And I was like, what? Where are they ending up? So yes, I was confused the whole time between Ontario's capital and Albania's capital. Tirana.
Yeah, a little bit different. I don't think here in Ontario we were founded in 1614 by Ottoman Albanians. But, maybe, who knows?
Anyway, no, I get a kick out of Tirana. Also, I've been dipping into Dino Buzzati's book, The Italian Journalist, and his, in translation, his writings about the 1949 Giro. And man, that was a different time. I feel like the pace was so much different. I mean, no one needs me to say there was no Instagram Reels at the time, but he opens his coverage on a ship floating in the Tyrrhenian Sea on the way to the race start in Palermo. It just feels so chill and slow, and maybe he's trying to evoke epics of the past. But I was just thinking, Jake, if you ever file a feature that starts on the way to a race, I'd be like, what are you doing? Cut. Get to the action.
Get to the point. And now we have race caravans that I think feature, more traffic than our local 401 mega highway here. I was watching the race and just the amount of, just cars running through. It's honestly gotten to the point where it's fascinating to me. Just everything else that aren't bike racers on there. I think it's just similar to what we have here.
The logistics is bonkers. Yeah, from the race caravan. I remember at the Giro last year watching it pass and waiting to join behind it. It's just like it's going. It's like getting stuck at a train crossing and you're like, surely it's going to end now. Surely that's the last. No. Okay, no. Waiting for the caboose to show up.
Exactly. And there's a livestock cart and you're like, what's going on here? How many?
Not quite a livestock cart. But even in the last 10 years of our coverage of racing, we've seen it evolve. You've heard people say it time and again. It's from the gun now. There's no chill stages where people are rolling out because there's no TV cameras around. There's no patron like Mario Cipollini saying, okay, we're going to stop for spaghetti lunch now.
Yeah, they're using the car, when the neutral start is over and they're waving the flag, they're using that car that accelerates away almost as a lead out, and all of a sudden they're just sprinting. It's like, whoa, we've got 4 hours here, 5 hours here, guys.
At least, I know. Well, there you go. So when I need a break, when I need a slower Giro, I pick up Dino Buzzati's book. To a more modern Grand Tour, the Vuelta España Femenina that wrapped up recently. Demi Vollering won that stage race. She won the final stage. She won another stage. She was super strong, which is not surprising, but I would say maybe not overwhelmingly dominant. There was Anna van der Breggen's win on the fourth stage that made things look maybe tighter than they ended up being. I was a bit on the roller coaster at that point. The final stage up to Alto do Cotobello had some, I would say, some nice tension as the race leaders. There was Vollering, van der Breggen, Marlene Reusser, and Cedrine Kerbal of EF Education. And no one was exactly ripping it apart until, 1.5 km to go. Vollering attacked, but then van der Breggen closed, and it was only at about 800 meters that Vollering went and stayed away. And then Reusser began to distance van der Breggen, and so Reusser came in second overall, van der Breggen down to third. So very exciting racing, and that match on the final climb I thought was great to watch.
Yeah, and I wonder if Anna maybe used too many matches on stage 4 when she went solo on that descent. That was a pretty exciting win, given her Michael Jordan-esque retirement, but now I'm back narrative. It was pretty exciting to see her just ride off the front. There was a moment where they thought they'd bring her back, but no, she went clear, and it looked good. But no, great race overall. I was watching, of course, in the points classification, Marianne Vos just completely dominate through the race. She had a really fantastic stage 2 sprint. If you guys haven't seen that, go back and watch that. It's chaos from the last kilometer or so. Lots of tight corners. Vos leads into the last corner with about 200 meters to go, I think, and just absolutely lights it up and takes the win. So yeah, just great racing overall, I thought.
Great racing. I agree. There was a bit of crashing in that stage that you just mentioned.
Yeah, the stage 2, very wet, very crashy. I noted Canyon SRAM rider Nev Bradbury losing time as a potential GC hope, and her teammate Cassia Nuvedoma potentially just going on without her, kind of animating the race at the front, which I always find interesting when teammates, maybe take advantage of each other, although who knows what the actual plan was from the gun. But no, I mean, the sprint, like I said, the Vos actually goes from the drops into the hoods on the final corner. If you watch the replay very subtly, and there's all this green kind of like bike lane paint, and there's a few riders who 4 or 5 before her wheel just slide out into the barriers, and she just absolutely takes it. So yes, early on, very exciting. Demi doing Demi things in stage 5, going away with 2.9. Like, she won the race last year. She won it this year. It was dominating, I thought. Impressive.
This episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is supported by MS Bike. MS Bike is running 11 great rides this season in 7 provinces. The first events are near the end of June, and the final ones are in September. Here's what I recommend. Head to msbike.ca, click on the ride nearest you, and browse the photos from previous years. Last year, there was cake at the ride that started in Ottawa. But cake or no cake, what you'll definitely see is riders like you having fun and making a difference. Each MS bike ride is fully supported with fuel, roadside assistance, and first aid. These events are very welcoming. You only really need a bike, a helmet, and the desire to keep pedaling. Of course, this is all for an important cause. That is, raising money to help those with MS. Did you know that on average, 12 Canadians are diagnosed with MS each day? You can help. Register now and start your fundraising journey at msbike.ca. At the Vuelta España Femenina, there were all those big names that we mentioned, but there was also another name that is the feature interview of this episode. That's Mara Roldan. We mentioned her last episode because of her performance at Amstel Gold, where she was in the break and finished 10th. But she's had other strong rides this season, which is why we wanted to get her on this pod. I spoke with her before the Vuelta started, where she rode in support of Ninka Vinka. During that race, Roldan unfortunately had at least 3 crashes. She posted a photo of her fingers on her left hand taped up on Instagram. She also called the crashes at one point, I think she called them pavement naps, which is a new euphemism for me. I don't know if you've heard that one, Jake.
No, I mean, we used to comment on road rides that roadkill was just sleeping. So, I mean, that might be adjacent, but no, pavement nap is not very restful. Your body battery's not recovering much during one of those.
That's a good point. Those naps do not rejuvenate one at all. I'm putting that now at the top of my euphemisms for crashing. My other favorite is laying the bike down. I think I've heard that from a moto rider once, but pavement naps. So gentle. They're both so gentle. I lay the bike down and had a pavement nap.
And, if the bike isn't yours, it's all the better. You don't own it. Great.
See my most recent editorial, huh? Yeah.
Please.
I would say that even though Roldan faced a bit of adversity on this Grand Tour, she, at least on the social medias, she exuded just such positivity throughout this whole race, which I would say she comes by honestly, just based on this interview I had with her. So let's get into the interview. In this chat, Roldan talks about her nomadic upbringing, how Alison Jackson might have saved her life. And Jake, you, before we started recording, told me that Roldan has something in common with Tom Cruise. Listeners, see if you can discover that on your own. We'll come back to that at the end if you didn't catch it. And there's also a funny fact here. Roldan really, early on, wasn't that much into road cycling, yet here she is on a World Tour team today. Without any further ado, here's Mara Roldan. Mara Roldan, welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We are speaking the day that it was announced that you're heading to the Vuelta España Femenina. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely quite an exciting day. And I mean, I've known it for a little bit now, but to be able to share it is also kind of almost makes it feel a little bit more real.
Let's talk about how you got there. Was the Vuelta going to be part of your season all along, or did something change recently?
It was definitely not planned when I first talked to my coach earlier this season. Coming into this team, obviously as a first year and still quite young and inexperienced, I think the team wasn't actually sure how my development was going to go. But yeah, I was actually super fortunate to kind of be thrown on a lot of races early this season, doing a block in Australia and then quite a few of the big classics like Flanders, and even having the opportunity to start at Strade Bianche. Just recently, the last race I did, Amstel, went really, really well. And so I think, the team is seeing that I'm kind of ready to take on a bigger challenge, and Vuelta kind of came to it. I mean, a little bit of a surprise to me, but I think, the team sees that I'm ready. And I think it's going to be a really, really fun week and a challenging one for sure, but I'm really looking forward to it.
I want to talk a bit more about Amstel Gold, which you mentioned, where you were 10th. For a story on our website, you mentioned to my colleague Matt Hansen that Amstel was a home race for you. Limburg, Netherlands, is a long way from Whitehorse, where you were born. So how is Amstel your home race?
So the really nice thing signing with this team is that they actually offer housing here in Sittard, the Netherlands. So there's an entire kind of 2-street that they call the Keep Challenging Center. We are all offered an apartment. We can just live here for the duration of our contract, really, at no cost, which is, I feel very, very lucky, obviously, especially coming from Canada, not having to, find Airbnb or be living out of a suitcase or hotel rooms, like just being able to really settle down and have a home away from home, if you will. Obviously, I'm still, Sittard hasn't exactly started to feel like home just yet, but being able to live here, especially having teammates around to train with, we really have this kind of little community of us that can train together. I mean, obviously, Sittard is where Amstel Gold Race is, and having it be, practically the roads I train on every single day, then it definitely felt like a home race for us.
Now, this Keep Challenging Center, is it is it almost like a college campus? What's the vibe there?
No, I mean, definitely not. Like it's we all have our own fully furnished apartments. We're not sharing dorms or anything like that. We even have a big kind of communal kitchen. If for example, like the day before the race, we had kind of our chef come in there, and we were able to have dinner there. But there's also like a gym space, just kind of services, I guess, that are provided for us. But we each individually have our own little kind of homes, and they're all separate. We don't have to be sharing them. We're allowed to really just make it our own, decorate it the way we want to. Yeah, make it feel as comfortable as we can. And that, I feel like, has been really a game changer when it comes to just having a routine, being able to buy myself a coffee machine even and settle it here. Like it's been really, really nice. So it's a space that I'm very grateful for.
I know another Canadian who used to live in Sittard. That is Leah Kirchman. She was on your team or previous incarnations of your team from 2016 to 2022. Have you been in touch with Leah Kirchman? Did she give you any tips about moving to the Netherlands?
I mean, for sure, I think definitely she was one of the main people I contacted when I was having these conversations with the team before signing, and she was super helpful. Really just being honest about her experience with the team, how she liked it here. I was fortunate to have her on a few Cycling Canada projects as a junior, and even at Worlds last year. And so yeah, she's definitely kind of been super helpful in just my development in general. To have her kind of tell me what she liked about the team, maybe things she didn't like. It just made it I mean, honestly, it made the decision easy for me in the end, because I think, yeah, she has said really good things, and all these things I'm happy to say are true, at least in my eyes. I know she really liked living here, and so far I really do as well. So yeah, it's been really nice to have her as a contact, especially coming all the way from Canada. It's different than talking to someone who's their house is maybe just a 3-hour drive away. Like it's different moving across the entire continent, than just moving from a different European country. So yeah, it was definitely nice to have her as a contact.
I want to get into moving around because I know you're kind of experienced at living in new places, but we'll come to that in a second. I want to return to Amstel. What was the plan for Amstel before the start line, before the gun went off?
We kind of came into it having sort of like two leaders in the race. So having kind of two girls that could potentially do the final. That was Pfeiffer and Marta Cavalli. Depending how the race would be raced, I think those were definitely our kind of two strongest options, if you will. The women's racing this year has been quite unexpected. And yeah, the race was really hard very early on, and we were quite good at riding all together. And then yeah, the peloton sort of split, and in the front half, I found myself with just the two other girls, and eventually a breakaway went, which I followed, and that was kind of my job, was to follow sort of pre-final attacks, kind of dangerous moves to take just to take kind of stress off of Pfeiffer and Marta. As soon as I kind of got into that breakaway, I mean, it was a strong break, but in my head, I always kind of thought it would eventually come back, because all of the favorites were still back in the peloton, like Demi and Kopecky and a lot of other, kind of star riders, if you will. Initially, was just in a breakaway, tried to keep it from splitting any further, and then I was further joined with my other teammate Megan, who bridged later on, because it was a big break, so we needed to have numbers in there. Then, kind of by surprise, when we hit kind of the one lap to go, and we still had quite a gap on the peloton, we kind of had to adapt a little bit and change plan, and then it was kind of my opportunity, I guess, to sort of take on that finishing role. I was quite lucky to have Megan there to help position me, and then my coach Callum in the car was also quite motivating, and really kind of helped me focus, kind of just giving me the confidence to take on that finale. It was a really, really hard race, but I just kind of had to do what I just had to do my best, really, and just really gave it everything on the final climb, and it ended up being 10th on the day. But it obviously, finding myself in that situation was super exciting and a bit unexpected. I mean, actually quite very unexpected. And I think if the peloton had come back together, then we may have had a shot at a better than 10th. But yeah, it never did. And I think, considering the circumstances of the race, I think we did a really good job as a team still. It was just kind of a a bit of a confidence boost, I guess, to be riding in the front of the race like that. And when I'm moving forward with some bigger races, it's just nice to have under the belt.
When you were coming to the line, you were in a group. It wasn't the group vying for the win. Misha Brendewald had won after taking a flyer, getting away. But your group was still after valuable UCI points. You were up against Alison Jackson, Lorena Wiebes, Ashley Moolman-Pasio. How were your legs at that point as you're racing for the finish?
Well, they were quite tired. I think for sure. I think one of the feedback I got from my team after the race is I did bring quite a few matches, maybe following moves and attacks that weren't exactly dangerous. So I think I could have managed my energy better. But I mean, everyone's legs were tired at that point. Unfortunately, I'm not I'm not gonna out sprint Lorena. And so in my head, I was like, oh man, kind of wish the finish line had been a bit closer to the top of the Kalberg, because I'm still almost 2 kilometers from the top of the last climb to the finish line. When it comes down to a sprint, I know I'm not the fastest sprinter out there. So yeah, having obviously Allison and Lorena to compete with when it came to the finish line, it was a bit hard. But I mean, I was just happy to be there, honestly, and just did what I could.
Did you chat much with Alison Jackson when you were in that breakaway group with her?
I talked a little bit, just here and there, flicking elbows a little bit like that. And she definitely threw down some pretty hard attacks. She was hurting us, and every time I kind of saw her go, I'd try to get on her wheel, touch wheels accidentally, and I remember she looked back and she was like, "Oh, you're kind of sloppy." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm getting tired." Rubbed her back wheel a bit. But yeah, she's always fun to have in the peloton. She's always an exciting rider to watch, and yeah, I think it's nice to have fellow Canadians. It's always kind of to have familiar faces, and especially being that break with her was quite fun.
Now, did Alison Jackson save your life last September?
You could say that, I guess. Yeah. Going back to World Champs, that was, I think, by far the coldest I've ever been in my life. To be honest, I think I blank on it a little bit now, to be honest with you. I think I was definitely on the level where I was not super responsive anymore, and it was brutal weather conditions, obviously. But I think potentially without her forcing me to stop at the finish line with still like 3 laps to go or something, I think I probably would have tried to keep going and push through, because I think by nature I really hate to give up, I guess, or to not finish. And obviously, yeah, it was World Championships, and it was my first time doing a Road Worlds, and I really was frustrated at the situation, but that's all I could do at that point. And I was dropped, I was cold, it was really dangerous, I think. And if I kept going, I'm not sure what the situation would have ended up looking like. So I am definitely thankful that she found me in the pack and forced me to stop, because yeah, like I said, I don't think I would have done it out of my own free will.
Just to give listeners a bit of context, this was at Zurich Road Worlds last September in the road race. And as I understand it, you were a bit underdressed in the rain.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I would be fine, but maybe that was just me being a bold Canadian, being like, I can take on the cold. But no, I really was underdressed. It was pretty brutal conditions, so I think the cold got to me really quick, and then it was game over pretty early on.
I know you can laugh about it now, but it was actually quite serious. I understand that even after the race, like, people were very concerned about how cold you were and getting you warm.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, unfortunately, I was not the only one. Like, as soon as I stopped at the finish, yeah, they undressed me, wrapped me in tinfoil, gave me some tea, and then they brought me into this heated tent. And I walked in and I saw probably 20 other girls in my exact situation. I think a lot of us were caught off guard with the weather that day, and it was, yeah, like I said, really unfortunate. But yeah, I was quite lucky to have good people there to help me get back on my feet. And the fatigue, I think, even lasted a good 2-3 days following that. My body was just like really kind of in a hole, I think, after that. Probably putting myself through the cold, but also through that effort of trying to push through. I hope to never be that cold again, to be honest.
Hey, producer Adam here. If you're enjoying this interview with Mara Roldan, why not check out our episode with a rider who preceded Roldan on the same team, which is now known as Picnic Post NL. From 2016 to 2022, Leah Kirkman rode for the outfit, which is based in Sittard in the Netherlands. Head to the show notes for a link to that interview with Giro stage winner and multi-time national Canadian champion Leah Kirkman. Now, back to the interview with Mara Roldan.
Mara Roldan, you were born in Whitehorse, Yukon, but you've characterized your life growing up as nomadic. Describe your nomadic upbringing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely quite a unique upbringing I've had. I think every time people ask questions like, where are you from? Or like, where's home? Like, they think it's going to be something easy to answer when it's actually really not. But I was born in Whitehorse, Yukon, and I lived there, I think, until the age of maybe 4 or 5. And then my family and we moved back to Quebec, where my parents are originally from. We actually had a farm there for a few years, and we lived actually, in a house being very residential, if you will. But my parents always kind of had this dream, I guess, or vision of just traveling, just kind of living on the road, going places. I was homeschooled my whole life. So, using travel and, finding, different cultures, being that part of my schooling as well, and just really being part of different environments. And so they kind of took that more seriously, I think, after we sold the farm, and they're like, all right, we want to try and see the world a bit more. And so we ended up moving to Costa Rica for about 5 to 6 months when I was 8 years old. And we lived there for a bit. And that was really nice. I have really fond memories of Costa Rica. But then again, we weren't really moving around. We were kind of in, one place in Costa Rica and doing little day trips here and there from there. But then I think, my parents realized like what we really like is actually just moving around and, kind of waking up to a new backyard every day type situation. And so we moved back to Quebec and sold the house that we had there. Within 2 years or so, my dad was kind of looking at different sort of camper vans, buses, things like that, for us to buy. And he kind of fell on these old Wanderlodge buses, they're called. So they were like this line of buses made in the 1980s by Blue Bird, actually, which makes the common school bus. But at the time, they were made as like fully decked out, like kind of fancy camper vans for the 80s. But yeah, then he found one in Florida, so he flew down, bought it, and drove it all the way back to Quebec. Once we finally kind of sold all our furniture, sold everything, we just moved full-time into the bus. And that was really my home for almost 10 years until I moved out for college. So yeah, it was the longest house I had, and it was really just living on the road nomadically.
Now, the bus included you, your parents, and your 2 sisters. Is that everyone?
Yeah, so I had my twin sister and then my younger sister. And to be honest with you, for actually maybe 6 or 7 of those 10 years, we had the dog as well.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, not a small one either. My parents were always big dog people. So
Oh, my gosh.
yeah.
And so what role did bikes play when you were young?
So growing up, we were always very outdoorsy, like hiking, rock climbing, mountain biking. We got into it as well while traveling, but it was really recreationally. So I was maybe 9 or 10 when I started. We just did it as a family, just for fun. We went to places like Moab and Utah and Arizona. And yeah, when I kind of started getting more into it with my sisters, again, just really for fun. And we end up meeting other families that lived similar lifestyles to us. And this one specific family had 2 young boys our age that race competitively on mountain bikes. And we kind of happened to go to a race weekend with them in Arizona one winter. And they were like, oh, you should sign up. Like, it'll be fun. And I never really thought myself of having much of a competitive nature, like especially growing up. My twin was kind of always the competitive one. She did like, some couple of running races with my dad and was always wanting to, ride at the front when we were riding as a family. And I was really not the kind of person to really kind of, I guess, compare myself to others or wanting to beat others. But I was like, hey, heck, why not? Like, I'll just I'll just show up and race. And I ended up just riding my mom's bike because it was lighter than mine, I think, at the time. And, the hair, like, not even, like, my hair was down, like, didn't even tie it up, like, no clip-in shoes, like, just wearing my leggings and, like, a normal t-shirt. And then I just show up to this bike race with, like, all these, like, 13, 14-year-old girls. And yeah, I just loved it. Like, right off the bat, I just did this race, and people kept commenting, like, "Oh my gosh, why, like, she's smiling the entire race? Like, what is this girl doing?" Like, but I had to say, yeah, I had a blast, and I think I ended up finishing, like, 5th of that race. And so I think that was kind of like the start of everything that followed.
When did you become serious about racing mountain bikes? Or after that race, were you hooked right away? Did you want to sign up for more races, or was it still a bit of a process?
I mean, I think it was like, all right, it's one positive experience, like, cool. But then I raced the following weekend in the same category because it was a bit of a series down there. And I ended up taking the win actually at that race. And so that, I think, sparked a little bit more of motivation or confidence, I guess, in me. And I was like, all right, like, maybe I'm good at this. And then raced the following weekend after that, and then won again. And so it was quite fun. And but to be honest with you, I was still not thinking much of it, because after that we left Arizona and just kept going about our travels, and I didn't really race until the following winter. Came back and did the same series, and I didn't train at the time. Like, we'd go on family rides, but no, I didn't have a training plan or anything like that. And I'd say when I really kind of got a bit more serious about it was after doing that second winter of that same series. Then I went back to Quebec for the summer, and I joined a local club there that was called Balbix. And that was my first ever experience kind of training, I guess. So it was twice a week. We had these evening sessions, and there was a coach there that, would give me intervals, things like that. And there was these local races that we would do. And so I ended up doing the entire, like, Quebec Cup series that summer. And I was, at that point, I kind of had gotten my sisters into it as well. And my dad was also doing some races here and there. And so it was kind of like a fun thing we did. But I didn't have a personal coach or anything. But then, got clip shoes and was getting a little bit more serious about it slowly. But always kind of keeping fun as the priority. After that summer, I think, I gotten a couple decent results, and then I had one of the coaches on the team approach me, being like, "Can I offer you, like, a personal training plan?" And I think that's really when things really started to change. Like, I think it was the first time I realized, like, oh, this guy, like, sees potential in me, I guess. And I mean, I agreed. He was offering me free training, and he was super, super keen. And so was I, to be honest. And he was willing to make it work from a distance for my travels. He started to kind of give me a training plan, and then it was kind of up to me to find places to train. And whether that was, on rollers in the back of a Walmart parking lot one night, or, in a super nice trail system the next night, then we just try to make it work with where we were, because we were obviously never in the same place. And it was a challenge, but I think also a really fun part about, I guess, traveling.
So when you got these training plans, or when you started to get a bit more serious, is this at the age of 15 about?
Yeah, 15 going on 16 about.
Okay. And then you anticipated some of my questions, because I was imagining that having new backyards all the time, as you put it, you'd have all these great places to ride. Was it always a new venue to ride and train, or were there challenges that presented themselves? I think you kind of alluded to it, rollers in a Walmart parking lot. So maybe what are the pros of being nomadic and a mountain biker, and what are the cons possibly of being nomadic and trying to train as a mountain biker?
I mean, I think the pros definitely are that I was able to kind of explore a ton of different ecosystems, environments, styles of riding, like slick rock in, like, Moab, and sand, and things like that, more like in the desert. And then I'd have the Rockies and the mountains, and just different terrain. I think that also helped me build kind of my skill set, I think, as a rider too, just be able to kind of adapt to all this different terrain. And so that was quite nice. But obviously, it's never always great trails and great places. Like, I'd be kind of asking my dad, like, hey, Dad, I have these specific intervals to do tomorrow. Like, where are we going to be? And if we were in the middle of, somewhere North Dakota when there's nothing out there, then yeah, sometimes it'd have to be a warm-up cream on the rollers, or it was in the back of a saloon in middle of nowhere, Texas, while my mom makes dinner. And, we just kind of had to adapt to and just do what I could. I mean, it was a challenge, but it was also just my reality at the time. And I mean, looking back now, I was like, man, yeah, it was kind of tough for sure, but it was all I knew. And I was just happy to just do what I could with my situation. And to be fair, I think the pros outweighed the cons in that instance.
You rode the rollers out the back of a saloon in Texas?
Oh yeah, it definitely happened. And you got this guy like coming out and with his truck and his cowboy boots and his hat, and he's looking at me like I'm psychotic. But yeah, that's also kind of fun, is to be able to kind of immerse ourselves in these different cultures and meet these different people. And I think that's also what traveling brought a lot of, is just a bunch of different kind of experiences that I couldn't have gotten any other way.
Mara Roldan, in 2021, as a junior, you were fourth in the cross-country event at the Mountain Bike Nationals here in Canada. Then you were fifth in 2022, still as a junior. You also competed at the Mountain Bike World Championships those 2 years. But somewhere in there, I think you did your first road race. What brought you to that discipline?
Yeah, it's actually a really funny story how I started in road, because to be honest, I had no interest at all in road cycling. I wanted to qualify myself for the 2019 Western Canada Summer Games. And so this was now, yeah, like looking back at winter 2018 was when I was planning to go and do that. And to qualify myself, cycling as a whole was kind of sub-discipline. So if I wanted to go for the mountain biking, I also had to do road biking, because the cycling portion of this event, of this multi-sport games, was 2 road races and then 2 mountain bike races. But I had never touched a road bike in my entire life. And so I was like, all right, well, if I want to go for the mountain biking, I guess I'm going to have to learn how to road bike. And so we bought this old 2014 like Fuji Transonic road bike way back in winter 2018 in Arizona. I remember even like being scared to get on it, and like, how do I ride in the drops? Like, how do I do this? I did not love it, but yeah, I was kind of like, keen to just learn how to ride it, just because, yeah, I wanted to qualify for these games. And that's kind of what forced me to get into it, and yeah, spend some time in the Yukon and in Victoria, being kind of part of some group rides and learning how to ride in a peloton a little bit more, ride in a pace line, etc. Then eventually, yeah, I went to those games in 2019 and did the road race portion. And to be honest, I really didn't like it. I was like, oh, this is boring. Like, I don't like the road. And I had a great time doing the mountain bike. And I finished, third actually at one of the events. And so that was really fun. But I did not touch that road bike until 2021, because 2021 Canada Nationals for mountain bike were in the same, like, really near where road bike nationals were. And so...
Sorry, was it around Bay St. Paul or something?
Yeah, well, so the road nationals were in Beauce, near like Saint Georges. So yeah, not super close, but still not super far. And so
I guess to a nomadic family, that's close enough.
Exactly. Like, what's a 2 to 3 hour drive? Like, that's nothing. So yeah, that's kind of what it was. Like, my parents were like, well, like, we're going for the mountain bike. Like, you might as well just do the road race as well, road nationals as well. At that point, I kind of had newly gotten more in contact with the tag cycling race team. And so I was also kind of keen to go, because they had a team there and they had a team house, and they were going to be able to support me, with mechanical problems, all of that logistics. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll go. And that was kind of really my first bigger real road race, if you will. And I don't know what changed, but I had a blast at that race. And I think it was girls my age. I could be competitive with them. And it was a lot more action than maybe some of the previous road races that I had done. And yeah, I ended up finishing 6th at that race. And I was like, all right, maybe this is the discipline I can get behind, actually.
Interesting. So there was just a switch that seemed to go off, and you found the road less boring, less annoying than before. Do you mountain bike much anymore? Do you miss mountain biking?
So I don't, not this season. Obviously with the pack calendar that I have with the team now, it's not really possible for me to fit in some mountain bike races. Like I did some training in the off season, like I do it recreationally still, but at least, for the foreseeable season or maybe 2, like I think it also just makes it easier for me to narrow down on one discipline. Parts of me always misses it for sure. I think that fun factor that you get on the mountain bike, like you can't exactly find that on the road, but to be honest, I wouldn't say I really miss it. Like I am definitely really happy where I am and what the road bike brings me and the community I have here and just road cycling in general it's a life that I'm quite content with now.
I'm gonna jump around your sort of resume, your cycling resume of the last few years. In 2023, you joined Cynisca Cycling, a U.S. continental team. Jillian Elsay is its sports director today, but at the time she was assistant DS. But you had known her before, and that was, as you mentioned, the team, TAG's cycling race team. Can you tell me actually a bit more about TAG? Because I'm seeing a lot of talent coming out of there. I believe Janaya Francis was on that squad. Currently, Sydney Swearinga is there, as well as Carson Matern. Tell us more about TAG.
TAG, they're a national treat team based out of Vancouver and Victoria in British Columbia. They have done a lot for development on the West Coast. I think them amongst a few other treat teams down there has been crucial, I think, in the general development and given young developing riders opportunities to race abroad, all of that. And at least for me, when I first got on the team, I was a first year junior, and Leslie Tomlinson, the manager there, was, in the midst of COVID at the time, and she would do these Zoom spin classes to kind of try to keep people motivated during those kind of harder times when we didn't have any races. And that was kind of my first experience with them. There's Nigel Elsay, who was Jillian's brother, was kind of the main director sportive there at the time. And Jillian, at the time, when I first got on TAG, she was still a racer racing for Instafund. And so actually, I remember at these exact first nationals in 2021, I had Nigel there as my DS. But I also remember being in the car with him following the Women's Elite race and supporting Jillian there from the car, who was a racer at the time still, before she retired. That following season in 2022, she kind of stepped into Nigel's shoes as he stepped up to working with Cycling Canada. And so she kind of took his role as DS and took over the team. That was really cool because she was becoming my DS there for my second year junior, and she was there with me at nationals. And especially with the inexperience that I had and young as I was super keen to just ask her all these questions. And, she was kind of, obviously racing in the elite peloton herself just very, very recently. And so just all the knowledge she had and the experience she could share with me was really valuable. And then, it was quite funny because once I left TAG and joined this other team, Red Truck, she was obviously no longer my DS. But, still always there. She lives in Victoria as well, where I lived for college. And so I would see her often and always kind of kept in contact with her. But I was actually totally unaware that she had started to work with Cynisca Cycling once I did reach out to them. And so once I kind of first had my call with the manager of Cynisca, she was on that call as well. And I was like, what? Like, what are you doing on this call? Like, it was super unexpected and a really nice surprise, actually, because it was a familiar face in a new environment and a new team. And immediately it was an easy answer for me to sign with that team because I had full confidence in her abilities as a DS and fully trusted that the team would be in really, really good hands with her. So doing all of last season with her again after my experiences with her as a junior, it was just, really nice. And it's it's still someone that I have a really, really good relationship with it, and someone that I think has been a big part in my development and to where I've gotten now.
And how was your time with Cynisca Cycling? You started, I think I mentioned in 2023, and then you were there for the full 2024 season.
Yeah, so I signed with them as a stagiaire starting in August of 2023, and that was really my first European racing experience. I mean, as soon as I signed, they flew me out like a week later, straight into Belgium in the middle of like Kermesse racing, and it was wild and hectic and crazy, but I really liked it as soon as I started, and the girls were super welcoming. Unfortunately, that first bit of the 2023 season did not end well for me. I ended up crashing in a race in Ireland that I was doing, a stage race with the team. And I was definitely down. I was like, oh, this team's never signing me for 2024. Like, all I've done is end up in the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I think they saw, even though I was a bit of a rookie, let's just say. I guess they saw, yeah, they saw potential in me, and they were really keen to take me on for 2024. So I was lucky enough to re-sign with them and then do really my full season in Europe. And it was huge. I mean, I think just that thanks to them, it was really kind of that step to be able to make it, obviously now to a World Tour team. Like, they were able to help me kind of bridge that gap of going from North American racing to European UCI racing and gaining that experience of being in these super big, aggressive pelotons and doing these big races, and just getting the experience I really needed to I guess, get a bit more notice from bigger teams. And that's what ended up happening. I think without them, I would definitely not be where I am now.
You actually had some pretty good results with Siniska. You won 2 stages at Redlands, finished 3rd overall. There was a Canadian on the top spot as well that year, Nadia Gontova at Redlands. But then you also won a stage at the Volta Portugal Femenina. Was it these results that got the attention of Picnic Post NL?
To be honest, I mean, I think it helped for sure. But Picnic Post NL first reached out in late May, actually. They were, I think, scouting quite early on. I think big teams always kind of do that, keep their eye outs for young developing riders. I think when I first did my first few races in Tour de Bretagne in France in May is when I think I was starting to get a bit more notice, kind of, doing these like top 15, top 10s, sort of kind of just being in the mix more and more. And I think Portugal, solidified them really wanting to get in contact with me, and starting to get really into conversations, getting to know me more, wanting to come meet some of the team members and the staff. It was obviously very exciting, but I think also overwhelming for me at the time. Like, I'd never been in that position where I had these big teams reaching out, and I think that's especially when having people like Leah to contact was super, super helpful. Because, yeah, obviously, other teams reaching out as well during that time, and, in the middle of a racing season, it all seemed kind of, a bit crazy, but it was nonetheless super, super exciting. And be getting that attention from a team like Picnic was in my head, like, I was like, what was happening? Like, I was literally I was on a club team, like, not even a season ago. And now here I am, having these conversations with the teams that I'm seeing on TV, for the last like 5 years of my life or something. And so, yeah, to be in that position was quite nice.
So the discussion started in May of last year. When did you finally ink the deal? When did you know for sure that Picnic Post NL would be your team for this season?
So I ended up signing in, oh man, I can't remember now. I think it was mid-August. No, it was early August. I think just before I went and did Tour de l'Avenir is when I ended up signing with them. So yeah, late July to early August, I think, during that timeline. So yeah, it was obviously a long process, just because I think when I'm signing with a big team, making a big decision like that, a big step like that, it was not something that I wanted to rush into, and I wanted to take the time to obviously really consider options and talk to the people that I knew really had my best interests, that I really trusted, that I really wanted to have feedback and view from, my parents, even Jillian and her brother, and all these people that really helped me to finalizing that decision. Once I did sign, it was never a hard decision. I think I knew all along it was it was a decision I wanted to make, but it's also something that I wanted to not necessarily jump into immediately.
Has there been anything that surprised you so far racing at the World Tour level? It's been 4 months, 5 months at the World Tour. Is there anything that just is taking you by surprise?
In general, like I think it's obviously harder. Not that it comes to us as a surprise, but it's definitely hard. And I mean, not even just the pace of the climbs, for example, it's simple things like positioning, like having to really, when I was doing kind of the earlier races of the season, being the one in charge of positioning a team of 6 girls behind me, whether that's going through corners or through a cobblestone section, having to really think bigger than myself, having to think, in a team's perspective. Like I'm not just one singular rider moving myself through a bunch of 140 other girls. Like I have a team to think about. And so all these tactical, tactical strategic aspect of road cycling is, I think, what I still really need to develop. And I think especially with a team like this, it'll come. But yeah, it's just, I think that's where my lack of experience maybe shows a bit more, is where I don't have those skills just yet. And that's what I've found especially hard, because in the races that I was doing, let's say last year or 2 years ago, moving in a bunch, it's not hard. Positioning yourself, it's not hard. And so going to these bigger races where all these little things are super, super important and can make such a difference, I think that's especially where the challenging aspects of it really come into play.
What's ahead for you this year beyond the Vuelta?
So to be fair, after Vuelta, I know I'll get a bit of a rest. I think it'll be well needed, but it's a bit up in the air. And to be fair, even the start of my season so far to now has been completely different to what I had originally, been told it would be. And I think that's just bike racing. It is a bit unexpected, and some girls get injured, and some get sick, and sometimes, I ended up, doing races I was supposed to do at all. And it's been fun also, just because it's more experience and more opportunities. And so, to be completely honest with you, I don't know what is really going to be my next race after Vuelta. There still needs to be a decision on whether or not I want to go back for nationals, because that's also quite a bit of travel, and it's always the risk of getting sick, getting too tired, all that. But nationals is something I would definitely want to go back for. It's a race that obviously I've been to both now 2-3 times, and it's always a race I really like doing. So potentially that would be my next one, but I'm not sure yet.
Well, Mara, thank you very much for your time today, and good luck with the racing and the season ahead.
Thank you so much. It was great talking with you.
And that's the episode. It is written and edited by me, Matthew Pioro. I had help from Jake Williams. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks for dragging me along here, just trying to avoid any sort of pavement naps today.
No pavement naps. No, you weren't caught napping at all. Also, thanks to Matt Hansen, who couldn't be here on this episode, but is always a super help. Actually, I got to shout out Matt. Our ride schedules have just not been jiving, but this past weekend, I was biking by his place. I gave him a heads up. I'm like, I'm coming to say hi. And when I arrive, what does he have there for me? He's got a can of Coke and a pastry. He's a good man, and he knows exactly what a cyclist needs in the middle of a long ride. So big ups, Matt Hansen. Also, thanks to Adam Killick, producer Adam. Not only does he produce this episode, he does the music too. Special thanks to Ontario Creates for its support. All right, Jake, we teased at the beginning that Mara Roldan has something in common with Tom Cruise. What exactly is it? It wasn't explicit in the interview. What is it?
Exactly. They've both owned or laid their heads in a Blue Bird Wanderlodge, which, as Mara points out, I think her father was back in the day hunting around looking for one of these buses. Very interesting RV. It in the scouring I've done on the internet, looks to be very lustful, or people lust for them. And each one is uniquely made to the customer specifications. They're based on Blue Bird's, school bus chassis, which is really interesting. Although you're not allowed to paint it school bus yellow. That is illegal, apparently. So Tom Cruise has owned them. It looks like Johnny Cash has spent some time in one. Muhammad Ali. So yeah, apparently these they're all in good company together.
Amazing. The painting rules, that just makes me think of Ferrari. You're not allowed to paint your Ferrari whatever color you want. I think pink is totally out of the question. So
Kind of like at the Giro, where you're not supposed to wear pink, you know?
yeah, EF education.
Yeah, shots fired.
Actually, Mara Roldan's story reminded me a bit of Magdalene Valliere-Mill. She was on the podcast a few years ago in her debut World Tour season, and as a World Tour debutante, Valliere-Mill was kind of surprised to get so many racing days. It was more than 45, including 2 Grand Tours. So while Roldan says she's not totally sure what's next for her this season, I don't know. Your team's been racing you a lot. They might keep doing that, which it will be pretty cool to see what she's able to accomplish this season.
No picnic, but she's on the right team.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Have you been sitting on that one?
Kind of. I mean, their team name changes every 2 years, so it's kind of hard to keep up with the jokes. But here we are.
It keeps challenging you?
Wow. Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Oof.
Okay.
I'm going to go enjoy some sun, Webb.
Oh, dear me.
Oh, boy.
And on that note, we'll wrap things up. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Ride safely, and we'll talk to you later.